Welcome to this training video on how to complete the HUD verifications. In this video, we will be covering the steps of how to do the initial round of HUD verifications in a new client record and how to update them for an interim review or an exit. Let's begin. First, let's take a quick look at what the HUD verifications are. They include 4 sections: health insurance, disabilities, non-cash benefits, and monthly income. Each section shares the same general structure of a yes-no question followed by a sub-assessment box. The yes-no question asks, does this person have, such as, does this person have any health insurance, any disabilities, any non-cash benefits, and any income? The sub-assessment goes into further detail. What type of health insurance do they have? Please verify for all these types. So how many verification types are there? Well, let's take a look. Health insurance has 10 types in total, disabilities, 8 types, non-cash benefits, 6 sources, and monthly income, which is very important for reporting, has the most at 15 different sources to verify. As you can see on the right, each of the 4 sections has a yes-no question and a box. We will cover the sections in this order, starting with health insurance. If you see them in a different order, that's okay. Feel free to jump to the matching section for this tutorial and then switch to completing them in the same order as in your assessment. We recommend the best way to get comfortable with Service Point is to practice in the training site. For anyone who would like to follow along on the training site, pause the video now and follow these steps before continuing. Be sure to create a new client record and a new entry. Depending on your agency's workflow, your assessment could also be in the Assessment tab. If you're not sure, feel free to ask your administrator. When you're ready to continue, let's see what the HUD verifications look like in Service Point. Here they are. Notice we have our 4 sections: health insurance, disabilities, non-cash benefits, and monthly income. And here we have all our yes-no questions. The red icon in the upper right lets us know that the sub-assessments are not complete. It tells us that some or all the values have not been answered. Here's a sneak peek of what to expect to see in a completed HUD verification. Notice the yes-no question is answered, and in place of the red icon, we have a nice green checkbox. That means all the values have been answered. At the bottom right, there are a few navigation buttons. If you click Next, you'll see more rows. We will start with Scenario 1, a brand new client record. The HUD verifications in the entry you've just made should be completely blank. There are 7 steps to do the HUD verifications for a new client record. Steps 1 through 6 are repeated for each of the 4 sections, and then Step 7 is the final step to save the entire assessment. Don't miss this step, or you'll lose some of your work. We'll start with health insurance, and then disabilities, non-cash benefits, and finally, monthly income. Health insurance, Step 1 and 2. First, find the yes-no question, which asks, is this person covered by health insurance? Select the appropriate response from the drop-down list. Avoid using data not collected because it's the same as leaving the question blank. Step 2. Find the HUD verification icon to the upper right of the box and click it. When you click the icon, a window will pop up with a list of the 10 health insurance types. First, we want to shift all the responses to no. Notice where the Step 3 arrow is pointing to? This is a shortcut to shift all the answers with one click instead of having to manually select each answer below. After shifting all answers to a no, the next step is to individually select all the applicable yes responses. In this example, the individual has Medicaid and state health insurance for adults. There are no supplemental questions to answer for Step 5. When you're done with the selections, click Save and Exit. Nice job! First HUD verification complete. You should see something like this view. You may see some different answers in the covered column if you selected different values. Check for the green checkmark box. If you still see the red triangle icon, that means there is a missing response. To fix, click the HUD verification icon again and confirm that all types have a yes or no response. When it looks good, let's move to the next section. Disabilities. Steps 1 through 4 should look very familiar. 1. Answer the yes/no question. 2. Click the HUD verification icon. 3. Shift all answers to no. And 4. Select yes responses if applicable. In addition to yes, there are 2 more potential responses: client doesn't know or client refused. If you select yes for any of the types, a window of supplemental questions will pop up. Follow your agency's method to answer these questions. The general response to the 2 questions is yes and yes. Leave the end date blank and click Save. Now you should be back at the list of disability types. Select any other disabilities that apply and answer the same supplemental questions. When finished, click Save and Exit. All right, you've completed another one. Do a quick check of the yes/no question and the green checkbox for confirmation. Starting to get a hang of it? Let's keep going. Next is non-cash benefits. Like health insurance, there are no supplemental questions. Follow the same steps as before: yes/no question, HUD verification icon, shift all answers to no, and then select the applicable yes responses. There are 6 sources to verify and only yes or no to choose from. When all are answered, click Save and Exit. Excellent work! As you can see, the HUD verifications are pretty repetitive, which is great practice to help you get the flow of the process. Here we can see 5 of the 6 sources. To see the row with Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, click Next at the lower right of the box to go to the next page. We can confirm, yes, this example individual is receiving that benefit. The answer in the yes/no question matches, and we have the green checkbox. Okay, we're ready for the last HUD verification. Monthly income. Monthly income is super important. This is one of the system performance measures reported to HUD, which looks at how many people had an increase in income. Monthly income has the most verification sources, 15 in total. Answer the yes/no question, income from any source, and click the HUD verification icon to see the list. Use the shortcut to shift all to no, and then select the applicable yes responses. Do you think there are any supplemental questions? Absolutely. When the questions pop up, enter a monthly amount. It's perfectly fine to enter whole dollars, or it's optional to add 2 decimal places. Leave the end date blank and click Save. Select any other applicable income sources. When finished, click Save and Exit. 4 out of 4 HUD verifications complete. If you want to check the income amounts you entered, click View Gross Income to see the monthly and annual totals. If they look off, double-check the monthly amounts. If you find a row that needs to be corrected, click the pencil icon on the left to edit the amount. There is one final step. Step 7. Save the assessment. After completing the HUD verifications, always remember to scroll down to the bottom of the assessment and save or save and exit. The yes/no questions are tied to the assessment. You need to save to keep those responses. Awesome job! You have successfully completed the HUD verifications at entry. Here is a good point to pause and take a quick break if needed before we move on to the next part. Ready to continue? The second part of this tutorial covers scenario number 2, updating and verifying existing info, which are generally done in the interim review and at exit. Just to note, a shared client record from another agency is one exception where the following steps may take place at entry. These are the 8 steps we'll be covering for updating the HUD verifications. The next part builds on what we've just covered in the initial HUD verifications. For those of you following in the training site, go to the Entry/Exit tab and create an interim review. Save and continue to go to the assessment. We will use health insurance to demo how to do steps 1 through 7 for each section. Step 8, saving the assessment, only needs to be done once at the end. After that, we'll take a detailed look at how to do monthly income changes. In general, there are two ways a response can change for each of the HUD verifications, from a no to a yes, or a yes to a no. For example, a client who didn't have a certain type of health insurance before now does, or they used to receive a non-cash benefit source and now they don't. To record the change, the first step is to update the yes-no question. Look at the current response and ask, is this response still valid? Based on the new status, if one or more of the types are still applicable to your client, then the answer should be yes. On the other hand, if none of the types are applicable, then the yes-no question should be updated to no to match. Step 2. Click the magnifying glass to open the view of all the HUD verification types. Next, click the blue column headers to sort the rows to help you find the one you need to update. Some lists can be really long, so this feature is very useful. In this example, click the title Health Insurance Type once to sort alphabetically, and then click it again to reverse the order. This brings Veterans Administration Medical Services to the top. Let's say the client gained VA Medical Services, so we are going to click the pencil in that row to edit. Step 5. Add an end date. The end date is near the bottom of the edit screen. Enter the day before the review or exit date, based on which one you are currently doing. For example, if the review date is 11/2/2018, enter 11/1/2018 as the end date. Also, make note of the type you are ending. We will select the same type in the next step. Go to the bottom and click Save. Scroll down and find the Add button at the bottom left. Click it, and a window will pop up where we can record the new status. In the example, we just ended the old status that said they were not receiving VA medical services, and now we are going to create a new line that says they are receiving. The start date will default to the review or exit date. Select the type to match the one we've just ended and answer the Covered question. Leave the end date blank and click Save. Follow the same steps for all applicable changes in this section. Step 7. Review the updates you've just made to make sure everything is correct. Why do we add an end date and start a new line? Couldn't we just change the original value to match the client's current status? What would happen to their historical data if we did? Here's a fun visual with light bulbs and switches to help explain this concept. At the start, the light bulb is turned off. The client is not receiving that specific health insurance type, for example. Time passes, signified by the blue line, and there is a change. The client is now receiving that type, so you want to turn the light on. But the light can't be on and off at the same time. If we don't create a new line of data and instead change the original value to on, it looks like the client was receiving that health insurance type from the very start, which is not true. Because we want to preserve that historical data, we will enter an end date for the no value and then start a new line with a yes value. Reach out to your admin if you have questions about this. Okay, moving back to Service Point, let's look at the screenshot on the left. Here are examples of updates in both directions, a no to a yes and a yes to a no. If needed, click Health Insurance Type to sort the rows and find the types that you updated. In this example, the client gained VA medical services and stopped receiving state health insurance. These are sorted at the top, the first 4 rows. I've added some light bulbs to make it easier to see which rows are on. The arrows are shaded from light to dark or dark to light to show the condition of the change. Let's check the dates to make sure the time covered is continuous with no overlap. Here's the first period. The start date is on the left. Follow the blue line to the end date on the right, 11/1/2018. Next, the blue line diagonally connects the end date of the old status to the start date of the new status. Check that the end date is the day before the new status start date. The end date is 11/1/2018, which is 1 day before the next start date, 11/2/2018. Good. The newest status is ongoing because there is no end date. The blue arrow just keeps on going. Putting it all together, we have a continuous timeline with no overlap. It might take some time to get used to looking at the rows. You might find it helpful to take a screenshot and draw in the lines. In some records with lots of history, they can have long chains of status changes. When you're sure the dates are correct, click Exit to go back to the main assessment. Steps 1 through 7 are repeated for all sections. Under monthly income, changes in amounts also need to be processed the same way. We'll cover more about this in the next part. Lastly, Step 8 is to save the assessment to record your changes. Changes in amounts under monthly income are tracked using the same process, but instead of turning the switch on or off, you can imagine that the switch is still on, but the light bulb's brightness has changed. Following the general workflow, do steps 1 through 4, as indicated by the red arrows. Since we're adjusting an income amount, the yes/no question should already be answered yes, and we don't need to change it. Click the magnifying glass and then sort the rows with the column headers. Find the row you need to edit and click the pencil. In this example, the client's SSDI income has increased from $100 to $200. On the left, we have the old value, which we want to add an end date. The arrow for step 5 is pointing to the end date. Enter the day before the review or exit date and click Save. Next, step 6. Click the Add button at the bottom left, and then you'll see the screen to the right. This is where we will add a new line to record the new amount. Select the matching type to the one just ended. Remember to answer yes to receiving income source and enter the new amount. Save and do step 7, check your updates, and finally step 8, save the assessment. Why is it important that the end date must be the day before the start date? Let's look at the light bulbs and switches again. We updated it to show an income increase from $100 to $200. Again, the blue line represents the timeline. By adding an end date to the old status, we can keep the record that the client used to receive $100, and starting from the new start date, the income is now $200. The light is still switched on, but in the second part, the income is higher and the bulb is brighter. Now, what happens to the report if we don't end the day before the new start date? On the left, the end date and the new start date are the same day. On the right is the correct way with subsequent dates. Do you see any differences? Aha, right there. If the dates overlap, we will have one day where the reported monthly income is the old amount plus the new amount. That's why the end date and the start date should not overlap. Congratulations, you made it! Here are a few final notes to finish off this tutorial. The general workflow for the HUD verifications is just a special way our vendor has given us to tackle the 4 sub-assessments. Be aware that your agency's workflow may differ, such as extra questions or different order of the sections. Always follow your agency's workflow. When doing updates, make sure to check the yes/no questions and confirm the answer is still valid. And remember, when making updates, the end date is the day before the review or exit date. Thanks for watching. As always, feel free to contact your local administrator for any questions.